Welcome back to another edition of Elevate Your Grind, brought to you by the Cannabis Lab. And I am your host, Todd Rosales. I sure hope all of you guys tuned in yesterday because that was probably one of the favorite interviews I've done since starting the show. It's the second time that I've had the chance to speak to Ricky Williams, but Ricky is such an interesting guy that I can probably do an entire series of episodes on him. Hopefully, next time I'm out in California, we'll actually sit down with Ricky and dig even deeper into the things that he's doing, the businesses he's running. And honestly, I want to learn more about his views on astrology. As weird as that sounds, folks, if you listen to his podcast, Curious Questions, it's going to open your mind into astrology and why some people are really, really into it. But for today's show, we have another round of amazing guests. For those of you who don't know what Cannabis Lab is, we are a group to unify business people in the cannabis industry. Most of our presence here is in Florida, but we have presence across the country. We have national panels and everything else. And there are a lot of groups out there that are similar to us that have a very specific focus in their area and are very impactful on the industry in their area. With that being said, I've recently, as everybody knows, I work with Spring Big. As part of my business, I work in the Nevada territory, and I came across an amazing group of people that are working their ass off to make the Nevada cannabis industry what it should be. Social equity, social justice, supporting women, just supporting the overall industry in general. And because of that, I wanted to bring them on the show because A, I can, it's my show, and B, I think they're more interesting to talk to than I am. So without any further ado, please welcome my friends from the Nevada Chamber of Cannabis, Dani and Tina. Thank you both so much for joining.
Thank you for having us.
We are so excited.
Well, this is awesome because for once, I usually attend the chamber meetings where I'm just the attendee and I'm sitting here right here in the studio and I get to watch you two do your thing. But now I actually have to get involved and I let you guys sit back and just answer the questions. I mean, it's like you guys do a podcast once a month on Thursday, just bringing attention to the Nevada cannabis. I've got to ask you, you both have full-time jobs. It's not like you have all the free time in the world. What was the driving force behind forming the chamber?
Well, so first and foremost, let's fully introduce ourselves. So my name's Dani Baranowski, and I work for State Flower Cannabis and Valhalla Confections. I am the sales manager and also brand strategist for wholesale brands. And
I'm Tina Ulman, and I'm the brand manager for Old Pal here in Nevada and the president of the chamber. And Dani and I met just under 2 years ago, being activists in the community and being brand managers who saw their privilege to work in the industry and have been very passionate about cannabis almost our entire lives, our adult lives. And we just saw a huge need for a professional association with passionate people who want to help shape the industry, connect with each other, meet our politicians, meet our political leaders and build relationships with them and get shit done. So here we are now.
That's awesome. I love the last part of that. And I appreciate you guys making those introductions because there is the one thing I am terrible at the show is assuming everybody knows what I know already. So I know you both very well already. So I appreciate you giving the background. Like I said, the chamber is doing amazing work. You guys are really supporting the industry out there. What are some of the major issues that you guys are working on in Nevada right now? Because I look at Nevada and it's really interesting as an industry because it is from the outside looking in, it's kind of small, but I also see it as a potential showcase industry because if we look at tourism in general, right, from the legal cannabis states, Nevada and especially Las Vegas has a huge amount of tourism. So what is that? That's a showcase to not only our country, but the world. And there's a ton of people traveling to Nevada. So, people internationally and nationally, their first exposure to legal cannabis could be Nevada. So when we look at your markets, what are some of the most important things that you two think are happening or need to happen in Nevada so we can be, I say that, so you guys can be the showcase to the rest of the country?
Well, it's interesting that you say that. And I wanted to go back to why we started the chamber. So once the pandemic hit, me and Tina had a lot of time to think. And one of the main things we thought about was how our cannabis industry could help elevate our economy. So in Vegas, like you said, we are really tourism-based economy. And so we saw an economic opportunity to not only elevate our community, but to do so with cannabis. And so that's part of the reason why the timing, everything just aligned perfectly. Our legislature only meets once every 2 years. And so it's even more important that we get this done right now. They are currently in session. So we are currently focused on 2 main issues, and I'll let Tina talk through the first one and I'll talk through the second one.
Yeah, so our two main initiatives are legislative and business initiatives. So for our legislative initiatives, we wanted to focus on social use venues with social equity. We have nowhere legal to consume here. We have obviously a shit ton of tourists coming and they're coming back, and we cannot be criminalizing these people. So this is a long time coming. There just hasn't been a group to put forward a proposal that most everybody in the industry agrees on, and the regulators and the politicians also agree on. So hopefully we're going to be that group to do that. So what we're proposing is that social use venues are attached to a retailer, or the other license type would be consumption only or permissive use for the first year. And then after a year of doing it well, the regulators feeling comfortable, everything get us situated, you can then apply for the next license type, which would be single serving usage. So you go in and you order a coffee and a pre-roll. And that would be a little bit more of an expensive license. You could also have infused food. We have such a plethora of cannabis chefs here and just hospitality associates in general that we feel this could revitalize a lot of businesses for Las Vegas that have closed down, unfortunately, with the pandemic. So we feel that those 2 license types are going to serve the community best, bring in the most tax revenue, create new commerce, and most importantly, give people an opportunity to get a license that were left out. And that was pretty much everyone except for the rich white male. So that is our social use venue. Our social use proposal. Our other proposal is a DUI reform.
So cannabis DUI reform. Again, this is going to touch not only the industry, but all the tourists visiting as well. So, when right now, the way the law works in Nevada is if you are pulled over and they, suspect that there's, cannabis use going on, or maybe you get into a car accident and you maybe have a joint, or you're like me and Tina and you work in cannabis and you happen to have some on you, you happen to smell like it. Police officers at this moment in Nevada can take your blood, and if they find 0.02 nanograms, which is parts per billion, so it's a very small detectable amount. If they find that in your blood, which I'm willing to bet almost everyone listening to this podcast probably has a lot of it over 0.02, they are going to charge you with the cannabis DUI. So not only is that going to affect tourism, I wouldn't want to come back if I heard that, I bought my cannabis at a dispensary, and just because I had it in my front seat, the police in Nevada decided to criminalize me and take me to jail and, maybe ruin my life with the cannabis DUI. No, that can't happen. And then also for folks that work in the industry like Tina and I, that we are protected. And then on another level, patients, right? Medical patients don't deserve to be criminalized because they have cannabis in their blood if they experience a medical emergency, like I said, a car accident, things like that. So we are really looking to elevate the economic opportunity with cannabis and also protect patients and consumers and our industry friends.
So first of all, 2 very interesting topics. I thought, Tina, I wanted to jump in exactly what you said, but let's start, Dani, with what you're talking about with the DUIs. So the police literally, do they take your blood like roadside? Is this actually happening? Or they take you back to the station?
Yeah, they would take you back to the station, kind of like how they would do with an alcohol DUI. And again, this is not indicative of how intoxicated you are. There is no scientific way at this moment for police or anyone to measure cannabis intoxication. That is such a complex issue. And so what we are working on with our assemblymen is to have them treat it the same way, similarly to how they do pharmaceuticals. And so it's how inebriated are you at that moment? So there has been a lot of discussion, a lot of studies by our legislator with all these different groups on how can we actually have a path forward that shows inebriation and intoxication in a way that's genuinely reflective of what's going on.
So on that note, you make a very good point. You talk about just, getting caught for a DUI if you were a tourist. I can tell you, if I was a tourist and, if I had a rental car or whatever it was, I went to a dispensary, it got pulled over on the way back. Yes, I definitely have it over that limit in my bloodstream. I mean, we all know if you're a regular cannabis user, it takes 30 days to exit your bloodstream once you start abstaining, right? We've all gone down that path. And I know I'm generalizing, but I can tell you, maybe I did take a tolerance break. Maybe I'm not a regular cannabis user and I come out to Nevada, I buy something, it's in my seat, and the police officer takes me down to the station to take my blood. That is enough of an experience to get me to not only not use cannabis in that state, but not want to come back to Nevada, that they literally were willing to stick a needle in my arm to prove that they were right about something that's arbitrary, right? So I think what you guys are doing is really what's in the best interest of the state and the tourism industry. I'm curious to know, and if you don't know, that's fine. What is the argument for this? Like, is there some kind of BS study, or is there any kind of actual medical, anything that's not political behind this?
So this is a really antiquated law. And 2 years ago, Tina and I got to sit in on the hearings of our legislators. And we had a public comment. Tina made a public comment about how detrimental this is for, like everything we've been saying. And really the argument is that this is an antiquated law. They came out with this law, I want to say 20 years ago, and that was the most amount of THC they could detect. And formerly, cannabis was a felony in Nevada. So it's really just that as our industry is elevating and moving forward, these laws also have to be progressed to be reflective of what the current science is and really what the current situation is.
And it's a great example of how just because we voted for it to be recreationally legal doesn't mean every other law changed. And so many people think that. I mean, so many people, myself included. So when I got into the industry about 2.5 years ago, the more I started realizing, wow, that's still a law, that's still a law, that's still a law, and that's where you're quick to realize that if we're not raising our voice, who's going to do it? The owners of the businesses aren't necessarily passionate people. They are well-connected people who are business people or political leaders who got licenses. And we, the people that are the boots on the ground, leading by example, breaking the stigmas and stereotypes, that's who people should be listening to. So luckily, we have created such a great coalition of like-minded leaders in the industry to really talk about solutions, not just complain or, voice our opinion in an unprofessional way.
No, Reddit is for complaining, and I mention it often. So, I have a feeling at some point in time I'll be torn apart on the Reddit pages, but I never seen a positive conversation on cannabis on that site. So, at least on cannabis in general, yes, but the professional cannabis industry, no. So, that's
keyboard warriors. We like warriors that are actually making stuff happen. There's a lot.
That's 100% the point I try to make. They complain behind the scenes on this stupid, forum. It's like, go talk to so here in Florida, we're dealing with a potential 10% THC cap, right? And they're talking about capping cannabis at 10% based on some arbitrary study from 1880 that excessive THC consumption causes psychosis. Now, my wife has a master's in psychology. She knows science pretty well. She goes, you know what else causes psychosis? A mass amount of caffeine too. So we're not outlawing Starbucks. You can still go get a Trenta cold brew or whatever it is, but more than 10% THC is going to make you crazy. So, I see these people on Reddit and they're complaining left and right. And I'm like, how about you just copy and paste that to your congressman? How about you to your representative, right? Like, let's do that. And that's really what I love about the chamber, is because you are getting the people on the street. You're giving them a very easy forum to voice their complaints, but then you're also kind of taking it and saying, we hear your complaints. Now let's all put our heads together and figure out the solution and go pitch that. So you're kind of being this filter between, I won't call it Reddit, but people that have real grievances and the people that, when it comes to government, there is a certain way that you have to present it for them to take you seriously. And I think that's exactly what you both are doing.
Thank you. And we're so lucky because we used to live a mile apart. That's why we were spending so much time together too. And we have a wonderful assemblyman. So Steve Yeager, he is incredible. He's actually championed both of these bills. He's the head of the Judiciary Committee, and he was also the chairman for this committee that was looking at the DUI law. He is early 40s, I believe. He is definitely pro-cannabis. I was able to meet with him in 2018 when I lobbied up in Reno, and I was super nervous. And I'm like, wow, this guy is actually a really approachable, down-to-earth guy. And then, so we start our investigative process on him, and then we find out that his wife is an incredible judge who has expunged over 2,500 records. She has all these other incredible female judges that are behind her, and we helped them all with their campaign, and they all won. And it was so fulfilling for us because we were able to be also a resource for our representative and a judicial powerhouse of women, so most people don't have that luxury. I think people think that their representative is some phantom person and they can't talk to them. And we want people like us to know that might not be true. They might be a jerk, but they might be really cool.
Exactly. And we want to, just like you said, we want to act as a conduit from, if there are people that aren't ready to speak up, we want to act as, okay, we can do that for you. And then in turn, that also changes the stigma for these politicians, right? They see people like Tina and I that work in cannabis, are passionate about cannabis, but also have this level of acumen and passion about changing policy and changing laws, right? So it's changing the stigma on a lot of fronts, and who knows the ripple effect we're having.
No, I think it's great. Like I said, I've been to a lot of your meetings and you guys discuss all these important topics. And like you said, Tina, if you look at your representatives of your state, I mean, at least in the state of Florida, they make $29,000 a year. I promise you, they have another job. They're just like you and I. They just care about their community. I mean, for the most part, they care about their community, at least if they're on our side of the argument, and they want to see something done, right? So I imagine they are normal people. Let's circle back to the other issue, Tina, because I'm really interested about social use, right? And you said it best. I go to Vegas, I come in as a tourist, I'm at the airport, I see every single taxi cab has an advertisement for a dispensary on top of it. I go, I buy cannabis, and realistically, on paper, there's nowhere where I can truly consume it unless I potentially happen to have a hotel room with a balcony, which at that point is just, I may not get caught, right? Now, I will say in Las Vegas, I may or may not have a habit of going out to where the valet is, going like 20, 30 feet from them and sparking up there. But in the reality of it, that is not legal whatsoever if I allegedly did that. So, I assume that the biggest driver behind this is like, hey, we're selling all this cannabis. People need a place to consume it. You can't just make money off of that and just, hey, have fun, enjoy your packages.
Yes. And I actually have a phrase for this that I say all the time. It's irresponsible capitalism. Like, we need to be thinking about that. That's irresponsible. It's unfair to be punitive toward the industry that's making a lot of tax money.
It is.
So real quick though, because you were shaking your head when I talked about the hotel balcony. Is that not legal either?
It's technically not. You're still on hotel property. Now, here's the ironic part about the hotels. So my background is in hospitality management. I worked for Wyndham Resorts for 13 years and graduated from UNLV. So I know this town pretty well. And I know if you get caught smoking weed in your room, they give you probably a $250 fine, right? Where does all that money go? Bottom line. Bottom freaking line. So I'm sure that the hotels have a love-hate relationship with cannabis. Yeah. Ultimately, we need to be preparing ourselves so that when federal legalization happens and you can use cannabis inside a casino, that we are prepared as a state to do that. So with the social use venues, I mean, there are so many benefits. Like, we have so many dogs in the fight right now. It's awesome. We're literally like DMX in the 90s.
That was good.
We're so serious here. Sorry, we got to cut a joke. And I love me some DMX. But so number one, what you just said, right? It's irresponsible. These tourists are coming here. The legislator isn't going to listen to anything that's not going to bring more tax revenue, increase jobs, right? They're just not going to hear it. And this will suffice so many of those issues. But it's the next logical piece of commerce to happen. And we feel like this bill, everybody has a little bit of something that they want. The dispensaries get now adjacent attached social use venue. Folks like us can open a cafe, a karaoke, roller skating rink. She would open like a scuba instructor thing where you could smoke weed and scuba dive at the same time. We're both Polish.
Right
Like we have a Polish smoke.
Pierogies and pre-rolls. Are you joking me?
I'm in.
On the books. See you there.
And that's what we also want to make sure, that people see the phrase social use venue as all encompassing, very normalized. It's not just a lounge, a smoky lounge where everyone's like hip hop driving and all this. Like, no, it's any business that you want it to be, especially businesses that just want consumption. And so many people do. So we think, we have every reason to believe it will pass.
Yeah, and beyond tourists, locals need a place to consume. There are people like, someone brought this example to my mind. They're like, I'm a mom. I don't feel like I can have cannabis around my kids. And so I would like, if I felt like I needed to medicate and I could do so safely, and that goes for patients as well. If you need somewhere that, you're renting or something like that, this gives them a safe space. So it's tourists, it's locals, it's patients, it's moms, it's all of us. We all have this huge opportunity. We've got a lot of dogs in the fight, like Tina said.
No, and you're 100% right. I mean, I'd like to envision a world where, we're all in sales. We all do business. We all get together with clients for lunch or happy hours and things like that. And it's completely normal to take a client or a business partner out to a happy hour and have 3, 4, 5 drinks. But God forbid you want to just smoke, a dog walker or a small joint or a full-size joint. Screw it. Why not? There's nowhere where you can really do that, right? And at the end of the day, we look at, and we can't really compare it because we don't have official studies, but cannabis use is a lot healthier for you than alcohol use. Like shit, I love going to casinos and sitting at the tables, but cannabis would probably be the healthiest habit going on inside of that casino right now, between the alcohol and the cigarettes and obviously the gambling, right? So it's really interesting to me that there is so much fight against it. And then you say that they're not going to listen to anything that doesn't increase tax revenue and jobs. Well, we're opening up new lounges. We're providing jobs. We're providing tax revenue. And then, of course, Las Vegas is home to a shit ton of conferences. I imagine the people coming in, those business people, would like the opportunity to maybe socially consume cannabis with their colleagues, especially you've got CES. Listen, electronic nerds love cannabis. Not that you guys are all nerds, but I mean, I was part of that scene for a while. And then what are you home to? You're also home to MJ BizCon, which is the largest cannabis conference in the world. Right? So how are you going to host the largest cannabis conference in the world and not have a place for the 28,000 consumers and business people to come in and consume? So I think what you guys are doing is in the best interest of the entire industry in general.
And totally. And I wanted to bring up one additional point. I think younger consumers, people like my age, they might not go to Vegas if all there is to do is drinking and gambling and smoking cigarettes. If you're not into that, we're into this Instagram age of experiential, fun things. Stoners, what if there was a stoner tourist destination, an Amsterdam of America, if you will? This is going to revitalize the younger people, the younger generation. And guess what? They're probably going to come because they can smoke. And then while their friends are gambling, maybe they'll gamble too. So again, that's just more economic opportunity to increase tax revenue, increase them for the casinos, for all these businesses that here in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I feel like the stoners hang out on Fremont Street.
Fremont, but the arts district, that's definitely the area that we love. There's so much potential there for new businesses. And it's also like what has happened to Las Vegas in the last year is a great point that we have to build commerce outside of just the strip.
Yeah.
We have to look at what else is out there. And unfortunately, these casinos, because they donate so much money to the political leaders, no matter who they are, both parties, that they just have everybody right here by the you know what. And it's like, hey, you know what? There's a lot of other industries in Nevada that are contributing to the tax revenue and to helping people have a great, comfortable life. It's not just the casinos.
And on that note, during Q4, cannabis, or in Las Vegas, in Nevada, $86 million came from cannabis without tourists. So it just shows how viable this is and how important this is to our economy. So without tourists, look at how much money we're making. And imagine if they had, these places to consume, it's going to up sales, up. It's going to be incredible to watch.
No, you're 100% right. And that's what I actually get excited about when I look at Las Vegas as an outsider now, because, I don't know how old you are. I'm 34, and I got to a point with my buddies, my last friend who had a bachelor party out in Vegas, where I'm just like, dude, I don't want to go. I'm so over Vegas. And then he literally texts me. He's like, they legalized cannabis in Vegas. I'm like, I'm in. Let's do it. And we landed it. And my good friend who works for a company called Dreamfields, they have the Jeter brand out in California. And he came and we did a pickup at Reef, and it was the best Vegas experience I had. But since going back, I've started to explore the areas outside of the strip. Obviously I made the joke about Fremont Street, but I went to Fremont Street as a kid. It was okay. Now it's kind of like a really cool place to hang out. Like it's more of a laid back vibe. I don't have to spend a ton of money to gamble there. And I'm sure there's a ton of other areas that are more local that I don't even know about. And I feel like cannabis can pull people off the strip and really revitalize the entire city of Las Vegas. Right. And I think that's what's exciting. You guys have sports teams now. You've got, the Knights, you've got NFL coming. I'm sure there's going to be lobbying for even more sports there. And, I think cannabis can be a big part of just revitalizing Las Vegas as a whole. I mean, I'm sure you guys see this pulling people into the other areas, right?
Yes, without a doubt. And we really have the mindset of why not us? We already have that mindset for our own selves, but why not Nevada? Why not be number one? So for so long, Colorado was the prototype for things. And then California, there's a lot of good and a lot of bad. But
Yeah.
like here in Nevada, we are a great sized state where we're not too small, not too big. We can set the bar. We have a very progressive legislator. We now have our cannabis being regulated by the Cannabis Compliance Board instead of the Department of Taxation. And most importantly, we have the best freaking talent. I mean, people with hospitality backgrounds that know how to make new businesses happen and make them successful, and people who smoke a lot of weed. So we really feel like we're the recipe for success, and the chamber is fortunate enough to be leading really the industry and being the voice.
And finding this like-minded group of people that all feel similarly and have the passion and have the drive and understand how important what we're doing is. It's amazing.
But we do have to tell you something.
Go for it.
If you want to come to our state, you better freaking say Nevada.
Nevada
with a long A. Nevada.
Sorry.
Nevada. Yeah.
I'm a Floridian who worked very hard to drop his New York accent, so my voice is all messed up. The funny thing is I've been going to Nevada since I was a little kid. My parents were in the apparel business, and the Magic show was out in Vegas. Which is funny because Magic stands for Men's Apparel and Guilt in California, but they moved it to Vegas. So I've been going to Vegas since I was a little kid. I remember back in the day when the MGM had a water park, and they had that. Exactly. They had
that was their slogan.
Oh yeah. And then that was when they were trying to make Vegas family friendly, right? And which I don't know if that was the smart move, but so I should be getting it right. Listen, the topics that you guys are fighting are awesome, but I kind of want to circle back to the chamber itself, right? So you two get this idea. We want to be a conduit. We want to really put some good into the cannabis community. You're two regular workers in the cannabis space. You're not super high. You're not owners. You're not business leaders. And I don't mean that in a negative way. How did the two of you come together and start to organize the rest of the cannabis industry in Nevada, which does have a lot of powerful leaders in it? There are a lot of MSOs that are participating in Nevada. How do you organize that community together behind you for this goal? Because I imagine, there is probably a lot of doors being slammed in your face before you started making traction.
Great question. Thank you for asking that. It was 100% the law of attraction, how we came together, and how so many people in this industry that are leaders have come together, not owners and operators necessarily, but leaders, just our colleagues. So through having a state that is not super spread out, pretty much there's Reno and Las Vegas and a couple little guys all over, right? We're able to have a location that we can physically come together. So a lot of brand managers and dispensary managers and cultivation, everybody, they started to meet each other, hang out, smoke weed, develop relationships. There was a lot of fighting between owners and operators when these licenses came out. And we were like, that's not the industry that we want to work in. Absolutely not. We're going to do just the opposite. We're going to make sure, hey, you're not only selling a similar product to me, but it doesn't mean that we can't all be in this space together. Yeah. So just through having awesome people, through treating people well, doing business well, leading by example, putting in the work, we connected so much together because we're willing to put in the work. And I think that's what separates top performers from mediocre performers. Especially in the cannabis industry. And once you find those people who know how to get the job done, of course, you're going to stick to them like glue.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we're still at a place in this industry where there's enough of a piece of the pie left for everybody. And if we, it's all about co-opetition, right? We at some point we're all going to have to go head to head with each other, but I don't think we're there yet. I think right now, if you're a good person, you put good out there and you can help your fellow industry people, it comes back to you, right? Oh. It's funny. I look at a lot of people getting into the cannabis space and you look at their resumes or their LinkedIn and there might be a lot of turnover when they first start. But that's because, you're trying to figure out your space in this industry. It's a nascent industry. There are good companies, there are bad companies, there are good employees and there are bad employees. So I think once you find your spot and you find your community of people, as I have with the Chamber, that's how you're going to find success. And that's why I love what you girls are doing there, because I think you're kind of inspiring people like, hey, we're all in this together. If we all fight for these issues, we're all going to benefit. And, 5-10 years from now, when we're all, sitting on our yachts, we can yell at each other and fight for competition. But, I joke about that, but I've gotten more benefit in this industry from helping people that are potentially competitors than I have from shutting them out. I don't know if you guys see that.
Yes.
I think a prime example is Tina and I. We both work for cannabis flower brands, and when I run out of weed, I say, who else has some amazing flower? My friend Tina. I genuinely believe that all ships rise with the tide, and I think that's kind of where most people in our industry are. And those who aren't, they burn out and they disappear. They fizzle out because the plant brings us all together. And same with business at this moment. So grateful to be a part of it.
And one thing we like to keep under control is we're not big on egos. We're not big on hanging out with people with big egos. We like to not have big egos. Being humble is extremely important to both of us. So I think that's also what creates for a good cohesive association is drop your ego. Like at the end of the day, you're selling weed.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. So Dani, do you try to, I know Old Pal has a lot of cool swag. Are you stealing her apple pipes and joint holders?
It's so funny that you said apple pipe because Tina was running a promotion the other day and it was like, buy Old Pal, get a free gift or something. I was like, are you selling the apple pipe? I was like, because I will be there immediately. No, it's all friendly and we work in, kind of two separate fields. And again, it's just helping our friends out as much as we can. And we want this industry to succeed. I want my friends to succeed. And because I don't have a huge ego and I'm not out for blood, that comes very easily to me and very naturally. I want everyone to be as happy as I am. That's something I say. And cannabis is an amazing way to do that and bring people together.
Hell yeah. Winners stick with winners too. So, I mean, when you got a group of people who like to win the right way, you should have some momentum. And if you want an apple pipe, I have one left and I could probably send it to you.
I have a feeling that Dani's going to attack me if I take it off your hands.
I was just going to say, I'll be right back.
She's like, what do you mean? Someone stole your last apple pipe. I actually, honestly, I mean, not to go on the tangent with your swag. You guys posted about the joint holder yesterday. I know it's a standard cigarette case, but that's right up my alley right there.
It is.
Um,
Oh,
I
okay.
am a, I am a, I listen. I am the most basic cannabis smoker there is. I like joints. I like joints. I like joints. I'll do other stuff, but I like joints. So that's where I am. And you know what? I don't think I've ever spoken like that on this show too. So
Oh, well, look at you. See, we're getting you out of your shell. Maybe we're even possibly more interesting than Ricky Williams. Who knows? I mean, we haven't even gotten to the really interesting stuff about us. This is, service level.
well, the real interesting stuff will come out when I actually get out to Nevada to a chamber meeting and we can do this again in person. So,
And
on that
hopefully we
note,
can consume at that point. Hopefully this legislation is through and we can all share we wouldn't share a joint rather, but we could all have our own joints, but sit around and talk business and talk about what we are all doing for this industry and how we can work together best.
that sounds amazing. That sounds like one of the best business meetings I can attend.
And then we can go to a
Let
buffet.
all right, now you're just speaking you've read my diary, smoking cannabis and going to a buffet. I am all in. So let's circle back to the important stuff here. As much as I can talk cannabis and cannabis use all day, you guys are doing important work out there. You are an association. There are memberships for people in Vegas. Let's what can people get? I know you're working on those two issues, but anything else going on? What are some of the events you guys are doing? What are some of the issues you're working on? What can people get excited about for the chamber this year?
Great question. So we have monthly meetings. Right now they are via Zoom. I'm hoping next month they will be back in person. But that monthly meeting is filled with knowledge and information and connections so that you leave there very filled with everything that we're trying to provide. So participating in the monthly meetings, we do a community project once a month. We know a lot of companies have nobody handling their corporate social responsibility. And that's where when becoming a member of the chamber, they can tell their teams, hey guys, go with the chamber. They're doing this service project this month. So we're willing to organize that. And then professional development. That's the part that Dani and I love, especially working with young women, maybe people that haven't had leaders that have really shown them, the way to be a great businessman or woman. So we really see an opportunity to elevate the talent in this industry and help them move to the next level.
And on that note, we do host a professional development course once a month. So last month it
Very
was
cool.
Intro to Business from our lawyers. So if you want to start a cannabis business, how do you get started? So providing this again for our community, letting people know, and providing the space to help everyone grow. We're all about it.
And that little segment is called Nuggets of Knowledge. And it's only half an hour. So we like to say, get smarter in a half an hour. And this next Thursday coming up, our lobbyist, Scott Rutledge, he's going to be teaching us about the legislator because politics is definitely overwhelming and confusing. So we want everyone to just increase their acumen a little bit more.
No, I think the knowledge that you guys are putting out there is it's pertinent. It's good and it's easy to consume. Like I said, I've been to 2 meetings so far. I think I missed one by accident, but that's because I'm East Coast.
Better be an accident.
I go to sleep early, but but the meetings have been great. I think you guys you have great causes and you're truly influencing the Nevada market, which in turn I hope will influence the national market, right? So you guys are doing great. Let's tell people where they can find you.
Yes. So if people are interested in becoming a member, we would love to have you. It's extremely affordable. It's a year membership. They can find all about it on our website, which is thechamberofcannabis.org. And it's very easy it's stoner friendly. We'll say that. They can also go to our Instagram, which is Chamber of Cannabis. I am your old pal Tina on Instagram.
I am the Gypsy Sorceress.
And you can also find us on LinkedIn. But shoot, we're out here, man. We're easy to find. We're in the streets. We're putting in the work, and we would love to have people join, especially if you want to get in the industry or you want to grow as a leader. That's who we want to see.
Yeah, I mean, folks, I've been a member now for probably a month and a half. It's been extremely beneficial. I will tell you after this show, you have friends here in Florida giving your support in C-Lab and everywhere across the country. We actually now we've had a big presence in Colorado and California. Somehow we got a boost in Michigan as well too. So our national audience is growing. C-Lab would definitely love to do an event with you guys in the future and bring some of our media presence and attention to you guys. So I'm glad that we crossed paths. I'm glad that give a shout out. Our friend Ron Bergendabs himself, Matt connected us. So I appreciate you guys. And if there's anything you want to leave as some parting words, let's say that.
Well, that's a loaded question. You've got a lot of gems.
Yeah.
A lot of gems.
Let me
drop some knowledge. Now you only have 30 seconds, not 30 minutes. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, here's one that I like to leave with. Some people make things happen. Some people watch things happen. Some people wonder, what happened? Which one are you?
I should have just ended it right there. Dani, Tina, thank you so much for joining. And I will promise you, we will definitely have you back on as things change in Nevada. Let's tell everybody about them. Let's get you back on here pretty often. So thank you guys for being here.
Thank you so much, Todd.
Absolutely. And thank you, everybody at home. This has been another episode of Elevate Your Grind. I hope you enjoyed it. This is definitely one of our more educational episodes. So hopefully you're taking notes, folks. If you missed any part of this interview, of course, it'll be live on our YouTube page on Monday at www.youtube.com/elevateyourgrind. Of course, if you don't want to look at my face, you can always listen to us on your commute or in your office, and you can do that on any podcast platform. Wherever you download your podcast, just search for Elevate Your Grind. We do have our first in-person meeting tomorrow night for Cannabis Lab. We're going to be discussing all the things going on with that 10% cap and all the other stuff that's going on in Florida. So check us out at the Museum of Graffiti in Wynwood tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Next Thursday, we have one of our national panels. You can find more information about that at joinclab.com. And you can join us next week where we have Christian Lizardi from GPen and Betty Tran from the Bukai Agency. We will see you next week right here at facebook.com/Canna Business Group.